Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Wednesday show. We've got a great guest here. We've got Miranda Lievers from one of the joint founders of Thinkific. Miranda, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Thanks so much for having me today, Jonathan. I'm thrilled to be here. So as you said, I'm one of the co-founders and I'm COO of Thinkific. Thinkific is an online course platform that allows anybody to create, market, and sell their own online courses. But ultimately for me, it's all about how I can help and how we can help small businesses build, scale, and grow those companies. So I love talking to entrepreneurs and small business owners who are looking to build their companies online.
Oh, thank you so much. And I've got my great co-host, Kim. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Jonathan. I'm Kim Shivler. I'm a technical instructor, instructional design consultant, and communications strategist, and co-host of WP-Tonic.
Yeah, and a great co-host. And I'm the founder of WP-Tonic. We're a support maintenance company. We only support WordPress websites with emphasis on learning management systems and management membership websites. And before we go into the interview, I just want to quickly talk about our show's sponsor, which is Kinsta Hosting. And Kinsta is just a great WordPress hosting provider. They host the WP-Tonic website. They sponsor the Wednesday shows. We actually host WP-Tonic on Kinsta. And if you're looking for a quality WordPress partner for not only your own site, but for your client websites, we can't praise Kinsta much more. And we just found their support and just the company just a delight to work with. So if that's interesting, go to the WP-Tonic website. There'll be a link in the show notes, and also there's banner adverts in the sidebars. They are affiliate links. So if you use one of those, you'll be helping the show as well. So that's great. So I'm going to hand it over to my co-host to ask the first few questions. Off you go, Kim.
Thank you, Jonathan. Miranda, so let's let everyone know first that, as she said, Thinkific is an online learning platform. A lot of times on this podcast, we're talking to people who are building out their own WordPress learning management systems. But you at Thinkific, you have a little bit different. You are offering people a fully hosted solution. They don't have to build it out. They just sign up for an account and can focus on, what I do with instructional design consulting, helping people build the best content. As you did that, so where was it in your mind that you said, wow, this is what we need to offer to people to help them build their online courses?
Yeah, great question. I'd love to tell you a little bit about our founding story. So like many small business owners, we really just started with an entrepreneur with a problem. My co-founder and our CEO, Greg, he actually started teaching in person, like LSAT classes about 10 or 12 years ago in classrooms. And so he found that every Saturday he was sort of schlepping his stuff down there and teaching to the few people that managed to make it out. And inevitably students would miss class or want more information. And so his first iteration was actually a blog on WordPress. And so he actually started putting information online for his students, and then basically kind of said, wait a minute, like, why am I just putting the supplementary information online? What if I could teach even more students by putting my course online? So he built a very first version of his own course. And so his original goal was just to solve his own problem. And what he found was that all of a sudden what he was hearing more from is other entrepreneurs asking how they too could put their courses online. So Thinkific was really born from an entrepreneur with a problem, like many of our listeners today, and has grown to what we are today.
And what year was that Greg, and I have met Greg, by the way. So
Great, awesome.
I am one of your customers, and I have met with Greg. So I'm a bit of a fangirl today. But what year was that he was building these courses?
Yeah, I think he started doing his LSAT in-person stuff like way back in 2003. In the late 2000s, he had started to actually do his blog, and sort of early, long before Thinkific existed. And then Thinkific as a company has been around for 6 years.
Excellent. And one of the things I like when I'm talking to hosted companies, and as I said, I have taught, I work with people. I've put customers into Thinkific. I do work with the platform also, as well as we know that I teach WordPress, LMS also. But compare Thinkific and the online platform that you have to what a lot of times people think of as the big monster in the room, which is Udemy.
Oh, sure. I'd love to do that. Yeah. So lots of times people assume that we're quite similar to Udemy, and it actually couldn't really be further from the truth. So Udemy is a marketplace. And so the idea of Udemy is a place where students go to get connected to the learning that they're looking to find. Instructors can go and they can put their courses on Udemy, but ultimately Udemy is all about connecting students with education. It means that instructors who are putting their courses on Udemy are really competing with all the other courses that are on Udemy. So if you're putting a leadership class, for example, on Udemy, your competition is all the other leadership courses, and those students are being presented with many different options for their learning. Conversely, with Thinkific is we're actually a self-hosted platform, which means that we are a platform that helps individual experts and entrepreneurs build their own businesses online to their own audience and their own students. And while we don't connect you with students, we also don't force you to compete with all the other instructors. So the last thing that we want to do is what we don't want to do is take your students and your audience and then start showing them like, hey, like you liked that person's leadership course. Why don't you come over here and buy this person's leadership course? Or here's an even cheaper one. And that's not what we're about at all. We really believe that really great education works really well when coupled with a really effective business model. Because when we have effective businesses and we can grow thriving businesses, it actually allows us to invest in creating better and better education. So for us, it's way more about that intersection between great education and great sustainable businesses and helping those businesses grow so that those instructors can build their own audiences rather than our audience.
Nice. Thank you for that clarification. I hear the same with people. They don't always know. I'd like to just throw one more in there for everybody. If you're not sure, part of that self-hosted is you own your content.
Yes.
Thinkific is not saying, no, that's not worthy of us. You can't put it up, etc. It really is your platform. You're building on their platform, but it is your decision on what your content needs to be.
Yes, and more so than that, so we don't vet the content. We don't dictate what percentage needs to be video or other types of content, and we also don't say anything about pricing. So you can choose to price your course however you need and however you like, and we don't jump into those kinds of business decisions.
Excellent. And I'm glad you pointed out the pricing. That's been a big issue with
Udemy for sure.
Particularly over the last couple of years where they've started really controlling that pricing. So thank you so much. Not so much on a learning management platform, but you are also a software as a service, which we talk a lot about on this show. And you have multiple tiers. You really have a very interesting tier group. I'm now on your $99 a month plan. What was your decision from a business perspective of what fell into those different tiers that people could have?
Oh my gosh, I wish that I had a really good answer for this, because this is something that we've actually been talking a lot about recently in terms of what the next iterations of our platform might be, and the realization that what we really want to be able to do ultimately is we want to make it really easy for people to start, and especially at those early stages of business, we want to remove as many barriers as possible. So you see that right now in the fact that we do have a free plan. We take a revenue cut, but the recognition that once you start making a bunch of money, we're going to tell you to move up because it makes more sense at that point for you. We want people to be able to start without any barriers and to get going and to not have to have a big outlay early in the stages of their businesses, but we also want to be able to grow with our customers. So for the most part, you see more advanced features moving up in the tiers simply because, so for example, on our top tier, we have a bunch of features that would require you to pretty much have a developer on staff before you would need them. Things like SSL and APIs and webhooks and all these things that a lot of times people don't even know about early on in their course career. So for the most part, we try to base it on where we think you might be in your stage of business. We don't always get it right, but we're always looking to make some improvements there too.
Very nice. And I do have one I just want to clarify something. And I just put somebody into your free plan within the last 2 weeks who, she came to me and that was exactly her need. I said, this is where you start. You can start fast, you can be up and running, and you'll grow. And then you'll add things like the affiliate platform, which you have in your higher plans. Mm-hmm. Now, when you said SSL, though, they're all of yours are secure whenever we log in. So we're not going to get those nasty Chrome notices that you're not secure, aren't they?
Yeah, you're a better product marketer than I am right now. That was my fumble. I was thinking of single sign-on, which is like a developer feature where if you have like a WordPress site where people already have an account, we can do a single sign-on with that. You are correct entirely. So everything has SSL. Thanks for calling me on that.
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome. I didn't want to scare our users to go, oh my God, it's not secure, because we've been preaching to everyone that
it's early here. I haven't had coffee yet.
All right. Jonathan, it sounded like you wanted to jump in.
No, I think we best go for our break, folks, and we'll be back and we'll be talking some more with Amanda. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. We've been having an interesting discussion. I just got Miranda. People might think, that why WP-Tonic's talking to you that offers a fully hosted solution, but the reality is different tools for different people at different times of their business development, and we're all about WP-Tonic providing insights to really quality providers like yourself. But another thing is you've been doing this a while, you and your team. Is there any couple insights that you can give to people that will help them develop a successful online membership course business? Are there any key things that you've noticed that you think, if you don't have those or you do have them, they really help in developing success?
Good question. Yeah. So I think that, oh my gosh. So I think that for me, the biggest, if you're talking about somebody who's really just getting started with online courses, the biggest thing right off the bat is, move fast, fail fast, and just almost like ripping off the Band-Aid. So one of the biggest blockers that I see, and often when I'm talking to people who are trying to get their course off the ground and they really are just really struggling, is almost without fail. When I talk to them, I discover that it's that they haven't actually launched anything, and they're just in this cycle of where they're trying to produce the perfect course before they go out to the market and share it with anybody. And that's the biggest number one, what not to do. Because I think with anything that we try for the first time, whether it's baking a cake or anything at all, the first time you're going to do something, you're going to make mistakes. Maybe trying out a new recipe, it's not the time to invite company over. But once you do it the first time, that's when you're going to make the list of all the things that you now know you should do the second time around. And you should have the same mindset with your course. So I encourage people not to build the big, giant, everything membership site. I'm going to build out 10 courses and then I'm going to open my doors. I very much am an advocate for come up with the mini course, the small, maybe you don't even charge for it, but create a whole course end to end and then market that just to go through all the stages of the process and get used to what's working, what's not, what would you change the second time around? And then you are way better set up than any other piece of advice I could give you about how to dive into the much larger projects that you've got on mind.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I'd like to see if you agree with this. Also, getting something finished is that you have the benefit. Then you will then get feedback from the users, because you probably make assumptions and some of them will be right and some of them won't. So that feedback is quite important. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you actually brought that up, because I think that one of the things that we sometimes forget in the online world is that education and teaching, and whether no matter what we're doing, is that we're still dealing with people. So when we teach in the real world, we're constantly changing and adjusting what it is that we're saying, doing, based on the feedback from our students. And so, as well as I do, that if you're teaching a topic and you're getting a whole bunch of blank stares, then that's kind of the prompt to be okay, guys, where am I? Either I'm totally below where you guys are, or I've totally lost you, but you can adapt. And when we're teaching online, we need to do the same thing, but because we don't have those visual cues of how our students are doing, we need to ask lots of questions, we need to get lots of feedback, and then we need to iterate so that we make sure that the content that we're creating is meeting the needs of our audience.
Yeah, the other thing is, do you get a lot of people, they think, a bit like a website really, is that they build and then they think people will just turn up? Do you get a lot of support requests and that about, oh, we've set it all up, but we're not getting anybody joining and it's been over a month, help? Do you get a lot of those emails?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the trap that people fall into once they have created. And so similarly to just ripping off the Band-Aid, is I'm also a really big proponent of starting to market really early on, even so far as like pre-launching and running promotions for courses, even while they're in development, because that work of marketing and getting in front of your students and new audiences, that's the business part. Like that's the hustling part. That's what we all need to do as business owners. And it's really important to do that simultaneously to building your content, only because it's not like the fields of dreams. Like, you know, like if you build it, they will not come unless they know where it is and where to find it.
So do you provide resources in your own help and support sections, and also are there any kind of other external resources that come to mind that gives a kind of plan of action around all this?
Yeah, glad you asked that. Yeah, we've got tons of resources. If you hit up our website, www.thinkific.com, we've got a resources section there that we actually have tons of marketing resources in particular. We've actually got a really great, one of our most popular posts is 55 ways to market your course in 2018. We've just updated it for this year. So we do have a ton of resources. For people who are starting on their online course journey as well, we've got some really good courses that actually walk you through sort of week by week, step by step, and we've actually got, I've put together a bundle for your audience here at get.thinkific.com/WP-Tonic, just one word, and we've actually got a free month of Thinkific, as well as a couple of those courses that I just mentioned, because it's important to get people started off on the right foot with a bit of a guiding path. So we've got some education for your audience as well.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for that. Our audience always love little freebies. They delights them. So we're going in the beginning of 2018. Where do you see online education courses going in the next 18 months? Do you think it's at a plateau, or do you think there's still tremendous growth in this whole industry and area?
Oh, I'm lucky to have the background stats to know that it is going nowhere but up. Which is kind of fun for us because, you know, we beat records every single week is like the new highest record for the number of new customers that we've got. But we know that online courses definitely are not going away. One of the things that we're starting to really see is that businesses who are not in an online course primary business are actually now starting to add online courses, because I think that in many cases, online courses are becoming table stakes. So anybody that remembers, I've been blogging on WordPress for, I think, as long as WordPress has existed. But anybody who remembers way back, you know, over 10 years ago, there was a shift where blogging started to become table stakes for business. So all of a sudden, especially if you were in a creative industry like photography or anything, or coaches, like there became a point where all of a sudden, you know, instead of blogging being something nice and new that you needed to do for your business, it became like, if you're not doing this, you know, like you're way behind the boat. And the same thing I'm seeing is happening with online courses. So what we're seeing now is that people are creating online courses to teach their audience about their other products and services. SaaS companies are using online courses to do customer education. We're even seeing things like yoga studios, in-person yoga studios, who are creating supplementary online courses so that their students can continue to get value throughout the week. So we're starting to see online courses become much more sort of mainstream, as opposed to just like an online course primary business, which is often about people who are sort of creating a new course to begin with.
So you're really seeing it as a different, people are utilizing online courses as a differential to their own business, to their competitors, really?
Yeah, and especially because I think that there's sort of a global shift I feel happening to almost to moving back to personal and back to personal relationships and personal help and support. And the recognition that especially when we have companies, we can't always have that one-to-one support and help and resources for our clients the way that we would love to, but online courses are actually one of the really great ways that we can scale personal connectivity. So as, again, back to that yoga instructor example is, I've got my class and I've got, people can come down in person to my class, but I want to maintain those relationships and continue to grow that audience and continue to nurture and provide content for my audience. And this is one of those ways that I can start to scale a personal feeling connectivity with my customers.
Oh, that's great. I think we're going to wrap it up for the podcast part of the show, folks. But Amanda's agreed to stay on and answer some more questions, which you'll be able to see and listen to on the WP-Tonic website with a full transcription of our interview with Amanda. How can people get hold of you and find out more about your product, the service, everything?
Yeah, like I said, so thinkific.com, or you guys can go grab that free month if you just want to dive in and check out those free resources. And that's at get.thinkific.com/WP-Tonic.
That's great. And Kim, how can people find out more about you?
You can get all the information about me at kimshivler.com, and you can find me on Twitter at kimshivler.
And if you want to find more about WP-Tonic and about this interview, go to the WP-Tonic website. Like I say, there will be the bonus content on there, the full transcription, or go to our Facebook page where you'll find additional content. And we always do the shows, the Wednesday and Friday roundtable show. We do a live feed on Facebook. So if you're around, go to the WP-Tonic show on Facebook and you'll be able to see the live feed as well. So that'd be exciting, wouldn't it? Also, if you're feeling generous, if you can go to iTunes and give us a review, that really does help the show. And if it's good, bad or indifferent, I tend to read them out, which is fun as well. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with somebody that's doing something interesting in online business or in WordPress in general. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye. Right. Got another question, Kim? You're muted, Kim.
I thought I'd unmuted. Okay, now I'm unmuted. I do have another question. What's coming next? What are we going to add to it? It's already cool. We've got affiliate options. We've got the full drip content. We've got quizzes. What's coming next?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think about what we're teasing yet and what we're not yet teasing. We're in the middle. So we've actually got, we're in the middle of like a quarterly goal. As a company, we're always trying to figure out new ways to improve our company processes. And one of the things that works really well for us is quarterly goals. This quarterly goal, so Q1 2018, is all about delivering new features to our market. So if you are paying attention to our Facebook group or to like that little what's new thing in app, you're already starting to see we've got some bookmarks. We just put out webhooks. We've got like a few things coming down the pipe. So I think we're going to be releasing something like one thing a week over the next few weeks. So we're really just doing a lot of listening to our audience about what people are looking for. We've got I think we've been teasing, we've got a big, some updates coming down in a few weeks still that will change how easy it is to create and launch pages and web pages and like make everything look really good and make it easier to match, for example, your own like WordPress site if you have like a main site. But we've got lots of stuff coming down the pipe.
Nice. Yeah, that has been one of the challenges in the past, has been getting that branding to look the way you wanted. Definitely fast and easy to get up and running. But when I was working with a client that said, no, I want it to look like this, I was like, oh gosh. Well, and the best way the best way we found to do it so far was a screen grab. We would screen grab the website and and put it to the right sizing and get a little bit more of the branding. But I'm excited to hear that. What about, and if you've already added this, I'm actually redoing something in there, so I haven't
okay.
in a while. What about a membership aspect to it where you've got private pages that are not part of that step by step by step? They're better for resources and additional things. Any of that coming soon?
I don't know if I'm allowed to tease this one yet, but that's in the works. So a lot of people do use Thinkific right now for their membership sites, and we've got some good stuff for those membership people who are looking for things just like that. And I know that it's in development. I just don't know exact timelines.
I'm excited to hear that, because that was the impetus for it moving to a different provider very recently. So I'm very, very excited to hear.
I got a quick follow question about that. How do you deal with this duality, this duality between offering a lot of functionality, but then ease of use? Because there is a conflict between the two that every online business has to deal with, because the more functionality you add to something, the complexity must increase, mustn't it?
Yeah. And you're right. That definitely is a conflict. And it's one of those things that I think we're still trying to figure out. Often in our early days, you definitely could have accused us of, just like, we sometimes refer to some of our pages as the kitchen sink. It's like, well, like every feature that you possibly want, it's all on there, go find it. And we definitely recognize that that's actually doing a disservice to people. And so we spend a lot more time and energy now on really great user interface and user experience. We've got a really amazing product design team, and their entire job is all about how do we make the product more intuitive? How do we make it so that we're adding features, but they don't seem clunky, but they just seem like a natural, obvious extension of the platform, so that we can reduce as much of that friction as possible. And I would say that it's a constant battle. But our goal is to create a platform that is easy to get started, but also will scale with your business. And that means the availability of some of those more advanced features. So I don't have a good answer about what the balance is, but definitely we feel the balance and that struggle a little bit, and we're definitely always working to make it easier.
So I get a little sense from your reply that I don't know in percentage terms how you see this, or if you ever thought about it, but do you see the fundamental problem as a UX question, or is UX a way of reducing friction, but between simplicity and functionality, there's always a stress point?
I think I missed the question in there. I mean, like, there's definitely a stress point. Can you help me again?
Well, do you see UX design can solve that fundamental problem, or good UX design, or does it just reduce that friction?
I think that inherently there's always going to be, like, anytime that you have even more than just one thing that you can do on a screen, all of a sudden you've got friction, right? So as soon as you have any sort of complex app, there's inherent friction. What UX design and really good UX design can do is to help reduce as much of the unnecessary friction as possible, so that you basically are just focused on, like, what do you need to know about right here, right now? So a really good example of that is one of the projects we have on the go right now is all about reducing how many other options for things that maybe you're not working on currently you see. So right now, for example, if you're way down into integration settings, on the left-hand side of your screen, you still see all the other options of all the other things you could be doing in your site. But the reality is that when you're working on your integrations, you probably don't also need all that additional clutter of maybe you want to run a report, or maybe you want to run affiliates, and maybe you want to do these other things. And good UX can allow us to clean up our interface in a way that doesn't feel like we're being forced into a certain area, but more just very natural of, like, okay, great, like, now I'm in this room and this is what I'm doing, but I know how to get back, but my options on the screen are more contextual to what I'm doing right now, so we can remove some of that unnecessary noise.
That was great. Another question. a bit like when it comes to web design in general, a lot of the language of web design initially came from print design. You know, some of the actual concepts in design from newspapers, from magazines, and from print design. And I also think the same can be said about online education courses, training, is that the language comes from traditional training, traditional education. But as web design developed, it became obvious that it has its own unique areas, requirements, ways people use web that's different to print. Are you observing, you know, you've been doing this now for 6 years and the industry is you know, developing rapidly. Are you seeing the same things in online courses that they're based on traditional models, but they have their own requirements, their own ways of doing things?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that we're very much in the infancy of what we can do with online education. And what's interesting about online education is I find many of the people who are getting into and who are building businesses around online education don't actually have an educational background. So in many cases, people themselves are sort of like leveling up in terms of understanding, like, how do we actually deliver content that delivers learning outcomes, and like, how do we build effective curriculum, and then layering on top of that, what does that mean in an online world? So I would say we're very much in the infancy of what we can do with online education. And to an earlier comment I made, I think that one of the realities of remote education is that lack of real-time feedback. And so that's one of the biggest immediate things that we need to be aware of and consider, which is, you know, like in a classroom, like I said, you get that immediate feedback of the blank stares amongst your students. So you're either boring them or you've lost them in some way. We don't have that online, but we need to do a good job of making sure that we're learning from the students that we're teaching and figuring out how to adapt so that when they are viewing it remotely, they're still getting a personalized experience.
I suppose technologies like what similar to what we're using for this interview, like Zoom webinar or even Facebook video conferencing, that they are in early days, but they do seem to be able to offer some of that, what you've just spoken about, don't they?
Yeah. It's interesting because, you know, we talk a lot about getting feedback from students, but this is actually, like your comment just now prompted me. It's like, wouldn't it be interesting as well to not just get feedback from students about how the course worked, but to actually maybe even just like watch people go through your course in person, because of the, you know, then you get like the, like, oh, what, where, like you can see the struggle, or you can see where they're bored. And I don't know that you get that necessarily through surveys.
That's great. Kim, have you got a question to kind of finish off our interview?
I do, and it actually ties into what you just said. Any thoughts in the future, and if not, maybe doing it, actually integrating with a Hotjar or a Crazy Egg or one of these services that'll let you actually see what people are looking at, where they're getting lost, etc., when they're in your online course?
Yeah, I actually love Hotjar and I love Crazy Egg, and you can actually integrate right now with Thinkific. So you can just drop those. Yeah, it's just JavaScript. You can just drop them into your site footer code, and you can definitely get those up and running on your course now. So you don't, yeah, so we don't have to do anything, but I love those tools because of what you just said, which is that ability to sort of, I love being able to watch back the session, right? And so you can like sort of view in real time, like where did they go? What did they click? What did they do? What were they engaged with? What did they think was a button that isn't a button? All those good things.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, one of the things I recommend a lot, and I'm the same, you know, part of why I came into doing more of this instructional design online now is because so many of the people who were jumping in just didn't have that background, and my master's is in education and instructional design. But one of the things I also recommend for people a lot of times is to have some live options also. Don't fall so into the trap of everything has to be passive income and automated. Have some live options to meet with students and have access to be able to see what they are learning, where they're falling, and how you can better support them.
I've actually got one final question, actually, just come to mind, if you don't mind. Yeah. Are there any of the people that are utilising your your system that come to mind that you feel that are really pushing online education in interesting or exciting ways? Do any of your users come to mind that might be really good examples that are doing really something really interesting with the platform?
Oh, that one's a tricky one. You know, we've got so many customers, and I don't want to call out anybody
No, that's
specifically.
true.
Yeah. So I don't want to call out anybody specifically. We do have lots of case studies on our site. I think, to me, actually, like, what I'm most inspired by are sort of the ongoing discussions about online education that I hear from people who are building courses every single day. We have a Facebook group, for example, Thinkific Studio. It's a private group. But once you're a customer, you can join. And my favorite thing is actually just to sit in there and hear about what people are doing, what's working for them, what's resonating, because, you know, I don't think that there's any one person that I can point to who's doing a bunch of amazing things, but there are hundreds or thousands of people who are each doing things that are really cool and really exciting. So that's my favorite.
I totally understand. As I said the question, I thought, I wonder if he's going to answer that, because it could be a bit tricky, could it? Kim, would you like to wrap up the show for us?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. One last go around, Miranda, how can people find you?
Yeah, so like I said, so I'd love it if you jumped on to check out our stuff. We're at get.thinkific.com/WP-Tonic. We've got some great bonuses up there with a free month of Thinkific and some educational resources for everyone. So come check us out.
And thank you for that bonus for our listeners. As Jonathan said, they love those bonuses.
Love free stuff, yeah.
Yes. And Jonathan, how can they find us on WP-Tonic?
It's really, go to the website. It's got a load of content. It will have a load of additional content that Kim's helping to write. And also I'm writing. We're going to have a lot of articles in 2018. It's coming this month. And a lot of guests around the learning management systems, membership, and the business problems that you probably have to run the successful one. That sounds good, doesn't it, Kim?
Sounds great. And I'm Kim Shivler. You can find me at kimshivler.com. As Jonathan said earlier, join us next Wednesday for somebody else exciting in the online business world. And on Friday, we have our roundtable where we will be talking live on Facebook about interesting stories on the web and WordPress. So join us again at our facebook.com WP-Tonic show at 9 Pacific, noon Eastern, and find out what the roundtable's up to this Friday. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
Bye.